Struggling single-dad mechanic Daniel Brooks fixes a stranded woman's tractor, never knowing she's America's richest farmer. His act of kindness sparks a life-changing opportunity for him and his daughter. Watch how one selfless moment on a dusty Nebraska road transforms their future forever. Like, subscribe, and comment where you're from. Let's get started. Daniel Brooks had driven this rural Nebraska road 1,000 times, yet today something felt different. The sky stretched endlessly above the golden fields, and the late afternoon sun dipped low, brushing the landscape with a warm, amber glow. As he steered his old pickup along the dusty path, he spotted movement ahead, a figure waving both arms urgently beside a large tractor. His instincts kicked in. Despite his own worries about overdue bills and a failing shop, he slowed his truck, dust clouding behind him, and focused on the sight of an older woman struggling alone in the open field. He pulled over, stepping out as his boots sank softly into the dry soil. The wind carried the scent of grain and earth brushing lightly against his face. The older woman looked relieved when she saw him approaching. "Thank goodness," she murmured, wiping sweat from her forehead. Her hands were strong, weathered, clearly accustomed to work. She explained she'd been trying for an hour to restart the machine, but it refused to cooperate. Daniel nodded with calm reassurance. "Let me take a look," he said, his voice steady but gentle. Dust swirled around her feet as she stepped aside. Daniel leaned over the engine, listening, observing, feeling for the subtle clues only years of experience could teach. He noticed the faint scent of leaking fuel and traced the issue with practiced precision. The broken fuel line was worn, brittle, clearly neglected by someone who hadn't known its importance. He asked for nothing, no tools, no assistance, no explanations. He simply worked, focused and steady, as the woman watched him with a mix of curiosity and growing respect. She introduced herself as Mrs. Harper, though Daniel didn't think much of it. To him, she was just a woman who needed help, and helping people was woven into the fabric of who he was. As he tightened the new line he'd improvised using scraps from his own truck box, he explained what had gone wrong and what she should look out for next time. His tone was polite, patient, the tone of a man who fixed things not just for a living, but because it was the language his heart understood. Within minutes, the tractor rumbled back to life, coughing at first and then settling into a strong, steady hum. Mrs. Harper's eyes widened with relief. "You're a miracle worker," she said with genuine gratitude. Daniel shook his head slightly, wiping grease from his hands. "Just doing what's right," he replied. He didn't say it to sound noble. He meant it. That philosophy was all he had left after losing so much: his wife, his savings, his business, slipping day by day. Mrs. Harper reached into her coat, pulling out a small envelope filled with cash, but Daniel gently lifted his hand in refusal. "I can't take that," he said with a quiet smile. "Save it for something you really need." The woman seemed stunned. In a world where people rarely helped without expecting something in return, he stood out like a rare gem. She studied him deeply, realizing he wasn't acting. This was who he truly was. Daniel offered her a reassuring nod as he closed the tractor's hood. He took a step back, admiring the engine's steady rhythm, and gave a thumbs up. Mrs. Harper, still processing his refusal of payment, asked why he wouldn't accept even a small token of appreciation. He shrugged lightly. "My shop's barely hanging on, ma'am, but I help because someone should. Someday this world might remember what kindness looks like." His words, though simple, carried the weight of someone who'd endured trials, yet never lost his ability to care. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the field. Daniel walked back toward his old pickup, dust lifting with each step. The truck itself bore the scars of years, rust on the doors, dents from countless jobs, and a cracked windshield that he still hadn't been able to afford to replace. But despite everything he lacked, he never let any of it stop him from doing what he believed was right. He opened the passenger door, checking on his toolbox before settling into the driver's seat. Mrs. Harper stood watching him, trying to understand why a man clearly struggling would turn down help. Something about him stirred a feeling she hadn't felt in decades. She saw exhaustion in his eyes, yes, but she also saw strength. She saw a man who didn't measure his worth in dollars or possessions, a man who still believed in decency and responsibility, even when life hadn't been generous to him. As his truck rumbled back onto the dirt road, she remained rooted in place, unable to tear her gaze away. Daniel drove off without looking back, unaware that his simple act of kindness had awakened something powerful in the stranger he'd helped. He didn't know that the woman he addressed so casually as Mrs. Harper was far more than she appeared. To him, she was just someone stranded, someone deserving of help. But to her, he had become a reminder of a world she once knew, a world where people helped without counting what they might gain in return. She felt a spark of admiration rising inside her. The warm Nebraska breeze brushed her cheeks as she watched his pickup fade into the horizon. She could still hear his words echoing, "Just doing what's right." Those words lingered longer than she expected, settling deep within her. She looked at the tractor, now humming perfectly, then back at the empty road. A sense of something profound washed over her, something she couldn't yet explain. She suddenly realized that meeting Daniel Brooks might have been more than chance. Perhaps it was a moment meant to redirect the path of her life. She walked slowly toward her farmhouse as the sky darkened. The golden glow shifted to soft lavender, and the chirping of distant crickets filled the fields. But her mind remained fixed on the mechanic who had appeared in her moment of need. She sensed a story far bigger unfolding, one that she couldn't walk away from. For reasons she couldn't understand yet, she felt compelled to learn more about the man who had refused her money with such sincerity. Daniel, meanwhile, continued his drive toward town, thinking only of the next job he needed to finish and the bills he needed to pay. The encounter had left him peaceful, a small reminder that he still had purpose, even when life felt heavy. He didn't worry about who the woman was or why she had seemed so grateful. He simply felt good, knowing he'd helped someone. The world hadn't been kind to him, but he refused to let it change who he was. And so he drove on, unaware that this small, dusty Nebraska moment, helping a woman on a broken tractor, was about to ripple far beyond anything he could imagine. That evening, Mrs. Harper returned to her farmhouse under a sky painted with streaks of deep orange and purple. The memory of Daniel Brooks crouched beside her broken tractor lingered in her mind, more vivid than the fading sunlight. She poured herself a cup of strong coffee, her thoughts wandering to the rugged mechanic who had worked so selflessly, refusing any payment. There was something in the way he had handled the tools, the engine, and even her worries that left a lasting impression. His hands, calloused yet gentle, had reminded her of work done with genuine care. She walked toward the window overlooking the small town nearby, her eyes tracing the familiar streets and the lights beginning to flicker on in homes across the horizon. Daniel's name had surfaced in conversations with a few neighbors she knew well, and she had spent the evening quietly inquiring about him. Each word she heard reinforced the picture forming in her mind. A man of extraordinary kindness, a father sacrificing endlessly to keep his young daughter safe and cared for. People spoke of him with admiration, tinged with pity, and yet he seemed unaware of his own value. Mrs. Harper felt a stirring she hadn't experienced in years. She had built an empire from nothing, starting with a modest herd and expanding to thousands of acres, with livestock operations spanning the nation. Wealth had come naturally to her through strategy, resilience, and grit, yet she had rarely encountered someone whose wealth could not be measured in money, someone who gave without expecting, who acted with integrity even when survival was a constant battle. Daniel was that rare person. She realized she wanted him to have more than survival. She wanted him to thrive. The night air grew cooler, carrying the distant sounds of crickets and the occasional bark of a farm dog. Mrs. Harper wrapped a shawl around her shoulders, sipping her coffee while watching the stars emerge, one by one, in the vast Nebraska sky. She envisioned Daniel in his small shop, exhausted, working by the dim light of a single lamp. She pictured his young daughter, Lily, playing quietly in the corner, unaware of the weight her father carried each day. Her heart ached for them. Daniel's resilience, humility, and unwavering goodness made her certain she could not simply leave the encounter as it was. Quietly, she made a decision. The next steps required subtlety, timing, and care. She would not announce her intentions immediately. Daniel must be allowed to live his life as he always had, free of any hint of obligation or debt. Yet she needed to provide him an opportunity, a way to stabilize his life, to secure his future, and to give Lily a chance at the childhood she deserved. The enormity of her resources gave her flexibility, and she intended to use them thoughtfully, ensuring Daniel would never feel like charity was at play. Mrs. Harper began making discreet calls that night, contacting her closest advisors to gather logistical information. She inquired about Daniel's small repair shop, the equipment he had, and the scope of his current work. Each detail she learned reinforced the urgency of her plan. The man was overworked, underpaid, and yet relentlessly generous. It was clear he had skills far beyond the limitations of his modest surroundings. The thought of his potential unlocked a sense of responsibility within her. She would not allow talent and integrity to remain unseen when she could help elevate them. By the time midnight approached, she had sketched out a preliminary plan. The goal was simple yet profound, to offer Daniel both financial support and professional mentorship without imposing her identity up front. It had to appear organic, as though fate had intervened. She imagined surprising him with resources that would transform his shop, introducing equipment, staff, and contacts that could propel him to a regional level. But she also wanted to provide guidance, sharing insights that only someone who had built a business empire could offer without making him feel overshadowed or indebted. The morning arrived with crisp air and the gentle sounds of livestock in the distance. Mrs. Harper rose early, ensuring that every detail of her plan was in place before Daniel began his day. She oversaw the coordination of deliveries to his small shop, making sure tools, replacement equipment, and even a few trusted staff members would arrive promptly. Each aspect was designed to minimize disruption and maximize impact. She double-checked that a personal note explaining only the essence of her gratitude and intent would accompany the deliveries. Her goal was simple: to honor his kindness with tangible action. Across town, Daniel began his day unaware that his life was about to change. He kissed Lily goodbye, her laughter trailing behind him as she ran out the door to greet the day. He started the engine of his old pickup, mentally preparing for the long hours ahead. Bills, overdue repairs, and a long list of clients awaited him. Yet even amidst the familiar grind, a small warmth lingered in his chest, a memory of the woman on the tractor who had been so grateful for his help. He couldn't have known the ripple effect his actions had set in motion. By mid-morning, the first deliveries began to arrive. Daniel looked up in disbelief as crates and pallets bearing new equipment were unloaded into his shop. Brand new diagnostic tools, spare parts, and even a state-of-the-art welding station gleamed in the sunlight streaming through the windows. His first instinct was disbelief. He had expected bills, failures, and setbacks, not a sudden influx of support. Yet alongside the equipment was a neatly folded note from someone who saw your kindness build your future. M. He read it twice, heart pounding, trying to reconcile reality with the impossible scene before him. Mrs. Harper arrived soon after, driving a modest car that belied her true wealth. She stepped out, surveying the shop with quiet pride. Daniel, spotting her in the doorway, instinctively straightened, unsure of what to say. The air felt charged with anticipation, though neither spoke immediately. Lily peeked from the side, her small hands clasped together as she sensed the gravity of the moment. Mrs. Harper approached slowly, her presence calm and assured, and then she spoke, her voice carrying warmth and sincerity. "Daniel Brooks," she began, "you helped me yesterday without asking for anything in return. That kind of kindness deserves recognition." Daniel blinked, struggling to process her words. I didn't do anything extraordinary," he said, his voice low but steady. "I just helped." Mrs. Harper smiled, shaking her head gently. "Extraordinary isn't always what's flashy or public," she replied. "It's the way you give without expecting, the way you protect and care for your daughter while still extending yourself to strangers. People like you are rare. I want to make sure that the world and your family sees it too." Daniel's chest tightened. Gratitude, awe, and disbelief collided all at once. He followed her around the shop, observing the new tools and equipment as she explained the plan. She wasn't offering charity, she was offering opportunity. A partnership that would allow him to expand his business across the region, mentorship to help him grow, and stability for Lily that he had only dreamed about. Daniel's mind raced, imagining the possibilities. A fully staffed shop, access to better parts, financial security, and a chance to give his daughter the life she deserved. Tears pricked his eyes. All the stress, the long nights, the sacrifices, they had led to this moment. Lily ran to hug Mrs. Harper before Daniel could stop her. "Thank you for helping my daddy," she whispered into the billionaire's shoulder. Mrs. Harper held her gently, smiling softly. Daniel watched them, overwhelmed, realizing that one small act of kindness, fixing a tractor in the Nebraska sun, had created a chain reaction that reshaped all their lives. The recognition, the support, and the future he had never dared imagine were now tangible and real. He understood, finally, the power of compassion and the unseen impact one's selfless action could have. By noon, Daniel was already coordinating with the new staff and organizing the shop. Margaret, Mrs. Harper, remained nearby, guiding quietly, offering advice without overshadowing him. They worked side by side, planning schedules, delegating tasks, and envisioning the business's future growth. Daniel's excitement was tempered with humility. He remained grateful, careful not to let ego cloud his judgment. Yet for the first time in years, he felt the weight of financial strain lift. His mind buzzed with ideas, strategies, and possibilities that he had never considered, finally allowed to dream beyond survival. As the sun began to dip low again, casting long shadows across the renovated workshop, Daniel took a moment to step outside. He looked at the horizon, inhaling the clean Nebraska air, and felt a surge of hope. Mrs. Harper joined him, her eyes reflecting both pride and satisfaction. "You've always had the heart for this, Daniel," she said. "Now the world can see it too. You and Lily deserve more than struggle. You deserve to thrive." Daniel nodded, speechless, fully aware that life had pivoted in ways he could never have planned. He looked at his daughter, playing with the new tools she had been allowed to explore, laughing freely without a care. His heart swelled. The small mechanic who had once been invisible in the town was now stepping into a future full of potential, thanks to the generosity sparked by his own kindness. Daniel realized that his values, hard work, integrity, and selfless care had been recognized and rewarded in the most profound way possible. The encounter with Mrs. Harper wasn't just luck, it was destiny responding to goodness. As evening fell and the first stars appeared in the Nebraska sky, Daniel, Lily, and Mrs. Harper stood together outside the shop, the hum of machinery and distant livestock blending into a symphony of hope and opportunity. Daniel understood that his life had changed forever, not because of money, but because someone had seen his character and honored it. He would never forget that simple act of helping a stranded woman with a broken tractor, and now the future for him and Lily looked brighter than ever. Daniel Brooks arrived at his small, aging repair shop that morning, sunlight spilling across the dust-speckled floor. As he unlocked the door, he froze. Something felt different, almost surreal. The familiar smell of grease and motor oil was still there, But everything else had changed. Tools gleamed under the morning sun, neatly organized in racks that weren't there yesterday. The floor, once cracked and worn, looked polished and strong. His heart raced. He stepped further inside, taking in the transformation, the evidence that someone had invested extraordinary care into his struggling workshop while he had been asleep. Outside, a shiny, rugged service truck gleamed in the gravel parking area. Its tires sparkled as though freshly polished, and the body looked brand new, reflecting the morning sun in sharp streaks. Daniel's mind raced, trying to understand what was happening. He had never dreamed that his small shop could look this way. Each tool, each organized bench seemed to whisper possibility and hope. Then he noticed movement at the entrance and turned, his breath catching as he saw Mrs. Harper step calmly onto the gravel, smiling warmly, her presence both commanding and comforting. "Good morning, Daniel," she said softly, her eyes full of reassurance. Daniel could barely speak, his throat dry. I don't understand," he managed, voice shaking. She stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to," she said. "I saw something yesterday, a simple act of kindness. You didn't ask for money, didn't seek recognition. You just helped someone in need. That integrity and generosity should never go unnoticed." Her words washed over him, filling him with disbelief and quiet awe. He realized for the first time that someone had truly noticed him. She gestured toward the shop, her tone calm but confident. "I don't reward kindness, I invest in it," she explained. Daniel's eyes widened, and he glanced around at the renovations. The equipment was state-of-the-art, the tools precise and immaculate, the floor sturdy and organized. Every detail spoke of careful planning and thought. "This," she said, "is a start. I want you to manage all my farm machinery maintenance. From tractors to harvesters, every piece. You will have steady work, a team to assist you, and support for your business to grow statewide." Daniel's heart pounded. Lily appeared at the doorway, eyes wide with curiosity and excitement. She ran to Daniel's side, hugging him tightly. "Daddy, this is amazing," she whispered. Daniel tried to collect himself, words failing him. Mrs. Harper knelt slightly to meet Lily's gaze. "Your dad did something remarkable yesterday, and it's only fair you benefit too," she said gently. Lily smiled, hugging her again. Daniel looked from his daughter to Mrs. Harper, the weight of realization pressing on him. One selfless moment on a dusty Nebraska road had opened a door he never imagined could exist. Daniel slowly stepped inside the shop, surveying the tools, the organized bays, and the upgraded machinery. His hands trembled slightly as he touched the smooth surfaces, each click and turn of the new equipment a promise of possibility. He had spent years barely scraping by, working long hours with minimal resources. Now, everything had shifted. The shop was no longer a struggling corner business. It was a launchpad for success. He turned to Mrs. Harper, words finally forming, though unsteady. I don't know how to thank you." She smiled, shaking her head. "No thanks are necessary," she said, her tone firm yet kind. "What you did yesterday, helping without expectation, was enough. I'm simply providing the opportunity your skill and heart deserve." Daniel's mind raced. He thought about his late wife, about the sacrifices he had made for Lily, about the long nights worrying over bills and failing equipment. Now, for the first time in years, he felt a sense of relief, pride and hope swelling inside him. This wasn't just a business upgrade. It was a chance to reclaim his life. Mrs. Harper guided Daniel through the shop, introducing him to the staff she had brought in, skilled mechanics and assistants, all ready to help him manage the workload. She had arranged for training sessions on advanced machinery, ensuring Daniel could expand his business knowledge while maintaining the personalized touch that had made him exceptional. Every detail was intentional. Daniel realized she had thought of everything, not just the tools and staff, but the mentorship, the network, and the long-term sustainability of his work. This was no gift. It was a partnership designed to honor his integrity. As the day unfolded, Daniel moved around the shop with a mix of disbelief and excitement. Lily played nearby, laughing as she explored the new equipment safely, supervised by one of the assistants. Daniel's eyes constantly flicked between her and Mrs. Harper, emotions swirling. He had feared that life would always be a struggle, that his daughter would have to see him fight every day just to survive. Now, for the first time, he imagined a future where they could thrive, where opportunities were abundant and kindness was rewarded in ways he had never dared to hope. Lunch came, and Mrs. Harper joined them. Over sandwiches and iced tea in the sunny corner of the shop, she shared her vision for the future, expanding his business to neighboring farms, providing apprenticeship opportunities to young mechanics, and creating a sustainable network of trusted technicians across Nebraska. Daniel listened, absorbing every word. Her insight, experience, and careful planning impressed him. She wasn't simply giving him money or equipment, she was giving him a roadmap to success, built on her decades of experience managing complex operations. As afternoon turned into evening, Daniel realized that his small Nebraska town would never look the same to him again. The dusty roads, the familiar fields, the modest shop, all had been transformed into the beginning of something greater. He watched Lily carefully handle a tool, her curiosity and confidence growing, and felt a deep gratitude toward Mrs. Harper. This day, born from a simple act of helping a stranded tractor, had rewritten their lives. He understood now that kindness has a ripple effect, often returning in ways we could never predict. By sunset, the shop glowed with life and energy. The new staff worked seamlessly, Daniel supervised with calm determination, and Lily ran errands for him, feeling like part of something larger than herself. Mrs. Harper lingered at the entrance, watching them with a satisfied smile. Daniel approached her, his voice full of emotion. "I never imagined this. I don't know how to repay you." She shook her head. "Live well. Give back when you can. That's enough. Just continue being the man you are." As the stars emerged in the clear Nebraska sky, Daniel, Lily, and Mrs. Harper stood together outside the shop. The hum of machinery and the distant sound of livestock created a serene backdrop. Daniel held his daughter's hand, feeling the weight of the past lift from his shoulders. This was more than opportunity. It was validation, recognition, and hope wrapped into one extraordinary day. One selfless act, one moment of generosity had rewritten their future entirely. The universe had taken notice of goodness, and it had rewarded them beyond their wildest dreams. Daniel reflected on the lessons of the past year: perseverance, integrity, selflessness, and resilience. All had led to this moment. He looked at Mrs. Harper and felt admiration, gratitude, and deep respect. She had seen his worth when he doubted himself, providing not just resources, but vision and guidance. Daniel understood that life often gives back in ways far beyond expectations. The dusty highway, the broken tractor, and the chance to act with kindness had created a chain reaction, transforming lives in profound, enduring ways. As night settled over the Nebraska fields, Daniel tucked Lily into bed, her laughter still ringing in his ears. He looked out the window at the stars, thinking of the vastness of possibility, and whispered a quiet promise. He would honor this gift with hard work, integrity, and the same selfless heart that had brought it into their lives. In that quiet moment, he realized that sometimes small acts can set in motion life-changing events, and the power of kindness, simple, genuine, and heartfelt, truly cannot be measured, cannot be. And so, life for Daniel Brooks and Lily had changed forever. A day that began with a broken tractor ended with a shop full of possibilities, a mentor and partner in Mrs. Harper, and a future bright with opportunity. The ripple of a single act of kindness had reshaped their lives, proving that integrity, generosity, and human connection remain the most powerful forces in the world. From that dusty Nebraska road, a story of hope, transformation, and gratitude had been written, and it would continue to unfold for years to come.